I had myself on mute. Sorry about that, family. What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. I also co-host and co-produce the only online show in the world for dads and fathers that is sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. And being part of that team last year, reached out directly and indirectly to over 100,000 fathers around the world. So as always, I'd like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. Now, if you've just been here for the first time, or you've been here for a many time, you're used to seeing Ryan Knight with me. Well, Ryan will be with us by the bottom of the hour. Friday mornings, he has to do the walk to school with his kids. So he'll be with us momentarily. But not the show must go on. And one of the things, if you've been hanging around for a little bit, you're noticing that we have some regular friends coming on once a month to add positive value to you or people you know. And we have another now brand new, well, he's been on the Morning Vibe before, but now we have him once a month. And I'm excited, very, very excited. And all of you should be, because either you may be thinking about home ownership, in a home ownership situation, or you may want to change your home ownership status. And to me, one of the best people I know, period, who can give thought process. And this morning when I was getting ready for this and getting prepped, saying, man, this is like a masterclass. This is going to be like a masterclass because I'm excited about this. So we have back Ray McMillan of the McMillan Group, who is a wonderful gentleman, and also the man of the McMillan Group, him and his son, Stephan. And Ray has been involved with mortgages since 1999. 1999, not 2009, 1999. He looks like he just started in 2009. He's looking so good, but he is with us, and Ray's going to be joining us once a month to talk about mortgages, real estate, and I know that he does have a fan in a lady named, oh, why am I forgetting? Serena. So I forgot her name, down in the DMV in the United States. And she had a wonderful conversation with him. And yeah, she's in the US, we're in Canada. So Ray helps out outside of Canada too, wherever he can. So Ray, good morning. How are you this morning, sir?
Good morning, Dr. Vibe. I am doing very, very well. Thanks for having me on
Yeah.
this morning.
Oh, excited. When I was thinking about this idea of having regular friends on every month, you were one of the first people that said, we got to get Ray on, because every time that Ray comes on, the questions come like crazy. So I'm really happy that you've made the time in your positive productive schedule. Myself and Ryan are very happy that you've made time in your positive productive schedule to share with us once a month, because especially in your industry, things, they change daily, not just once a month.
Yeah, things change very, very quickly. And sometimes the changes can blindside us if we aren't prepared. As you said earlier, for most people, owning a home is paramount on their minds. Owning that first home, which helps you to make your family comfortable. And for many people, it's the only wealth-creating vehicle that they will ever have. If you go back to when your parents bought their first home and what they paid for it whenever they did buy it, and what it's worth today, you will see the significant increase in value over time. So for many of us as immigrant Canadians that come from parts of Africa or the Caribbean, that is the one thing we want to get involved in sooner rather than later. So it's important to understand the process and how to make that journey as painless as possible. And for those who already own homes, they may be considering buying an investment property or buying a vacation property somewhere, but it's anywhere across North America, from here to Florida. And for those of us who have Caribbean roots, we may be considering buying a property in the Caribbean also. But let's focus on what's happening here in Canada and the GTA in the moment, and even in the US. We've seen interest rates start to go up. The central bank has made a series amount of interest rates increases over the last few months. It's unprecedented. In the past, when the central bank changed the overnight lending rate, it was usually by 25 bips. And by 25 bips, I mean by 0.25%. That change in the last few changes have been significantly more than that. They've been between 1% to 0.75%. And it's put a lot of strain on many homeowners or potential home buyers. Add to that is the inflationary costs. We've seen gas prices get up to around $2 a liter here, significantly more per gallon in the US. We've seen the cost of food items increasing significantly. Our inflation rate is currently around 7.6%, which is extremely high. We haven't seen such inflationary levels probably since the gas crisis back in the 70s, possibly. So we, as a home buyer or somebody who's trying to renew their mortgage, you have to be very cognizant of these things and prepare yourself to be able to navigate the landscape, to come out not too badly bruised. So you will get a few bruises. So what's the first thing you look at when buying a home? The first thing is your credit profile. And that's very important. Understanding where you fit on the credit matrix and understanding what lenders are looking for when they look at your credit profile. What is a good credit score? What is a bad credit score? What is a reasonable credit score? And as you see from the graphic in front of you, there's a range of credit scores. And the closer you are to the top of that graphic, the easier it is to get qualified for a mortgage in today's landscape. So you want to make sure that you manage your credit profile properly. And even if your credit profile is not the best today, it's not the end all be all, because it can be repaired. And most times your credit scores are lower for one of two reasons. Either there's excessive debt, meaning that your credit cards are maxed out all the time, or you've got unpaid debt, meaning that you've got stuff in collections. And in both cases, those can be remedied. So you want to, deal with the unpaid debt as soon as you can. And then if you've got your credit cards close to the limit, you've got excessive consumer debt, you want to start paying some of that debt off. Now, in the process of paying off high credit card balance, I usually recommend to clients, do not close the credit cards. Because as you close the credit cards, what you've in effect done, you reduce your available credit to your credit usage. So there's a ratio of how much you owe based on the amount of credit you have available to you. So if you've got $10,000 worth of credit cards and you owe $1,500 against them, then you will find your credit score might be significantly higher, probably in the high 700 range or even in the low 800s. But if you pay off two of those cards and then you close them and you keep one card with a $2,000 limit and you have a balance of $1,500 against that one card, you may find your credit score dropping significantly. What you've in effect done, you've reduced the available credit you have based on the limit. Right. So I always tell clients not to close the cards. And more importantly, that first credit card you got in high school or college with a $500 limit, that's the one you want to keep. because that aged credit card in your profile is what helps to keep your score high. Because
So Ray, go ahead, finish off your point. I just want to
the length
interrupt.
of time on the credit on the credit reporting agency, and there's three of those, is Equifax and TransUnion here in Canada, and in the US you've got Experian. So you have three credit report agencies that collect all your data on how you pay your bills. But the older your credit card is, the more impactful it is in a positive way on your credit score.
All right. So just want to catch up. As you see already, Ray is dropping knowledge bombs. I even have one or two questions, but let's do a little catch up. First up, Divine Right, which is Serena, says, good morning, Dr. Vibe and Ray. Happy Friday. Good morning, Marlon Stevens. Good morning, Live Lending Group. And I know, Serena, you said it's a little bit blurry. My apologies on that. It's a little blurry, but when we put this up in future, it'll be much more clear. So I apologize on that. Actually, Live Lending Group says, my restaurant clients are worried about commodity costs. Restaurant food distributors aren't honoring contracts and restaurants are buying from Costco. But Live has a question. Well, we'll get to that later. Rent to own and tax-free home account savings. We'll get to that a little bit. But there is a question here. Live says, so it's better to have multiple open credit products, but keep under 30% utilized.
That is very correct. That is so true. So you better have 4 credit cards at $2,000 each or $2,500 each, and then you owe a few dollars in each of them, and to have one card and have that limit, always above the 50% threshold or 30% threshold.
Okay, I have a question here. I had heard in the past that you should only check your credit score like once a year, because if you do it a number of times a year, it could work against you. You sound like you've heard that before. Could you address that?
You can check your credit score yourself by going to Equifax or TransUnion as many times as you choose to. It doesn't impact your credit score. That's a soft inquiry. You request that information yourself. When your credit score is affected by credit inquiries is when you're a credit shopper. So let's say you come to us to do a mortgage and Stephan pulls your credit score today.
Right.
And he pulls it again 15 days later. Because it's the same person pulling your credit report, it will not impact the score significantly. It may drop probably 2 points because your credit score is dynamic, right? There's always things happening in your credit profile. It's not a static report. So there's credit card balances going up and down. There's things being reported to your credit profile all the time. So the pulling your credit profile by yourself is not going to affect your score significantly. It declines if you apply for a car loan, for example, and you go to one dealership and they decline it, and you go somewhere else and decline it. You've got 4 declines in 1 week. That would probably drop your credit score by about 100 points.
Right.
Because you're doing the exact same thing, expecting a different result, and it's not changing.
Exactly.
Now, it's also important to pull your credit score periodically. I would say once every 3 months, or have some sort of credit alert in your score.
Okay.
So as to make sure that there's no fraud in your credit profile. The better your credit score, when you get above the 800 range, you want to check your profile regularly, because those are the individual with high credit profiles that fraudsters target. The higher your credit score, the easiest is to get unsecured credit and all other sorts of things. So if you got like an 830, 850, 880 credit score, then you want to check your credit score periodically, just to make sure there's nothing that's unsavory happening against it, or have an alert. So every time somebody does an inquiry, you get a text to your phone, you get an email or something.
Okay. So I'm going to pronounce it correctly going forward. Live lending. So Live lending. Thank you for it was my head, not my heart, but thanks for the correction. Serena has a question. I had to step away. How many credit cards is a good number to have?
First we have to understand what kind of cards they are and why do you need them, right? So you can have 2 credit cards that work fine. I've got I've got 2 credit cards, and I've had them for years. There's points in my life where I had multiple credit cards. I think at some point almost 10 of them, and over the days I got rid of them. or I stopped using them, sorry. But I've got two cards that I use. I tend to shy from department store cards. I don't think those serve any purpose, for the simple reason that the rates in those cards are extremely high, and we get those usually because there's usually a sale at the store. I remember back in the day it was Sears.
Mm-hmm.
When you went to Sears to buy your appliances, you get a Sears card, and you don't pay for a year or 2 years or whatever the case may be. Now, some of us are disciplined enough to use those cards and pay them off within the prescribed period, but many of us are not. So if you don't pay off that debt within the prescribed period of time, whether it's 12 months, 18 months, or 24 months, the rate on the revolving balance is usually around 29%.
Yeah.
So here you've got the furniture department, the furniture store cards, the electronic store card. I mean, we've all had those cards. I mean, I've had Best Buy credit card and Home Depot credit cards. I don't see any purpose in having those cards. I think it's better to have a bank card, whether it's a Visa, MasterCard from your bank that you have a relationship with, and you work in building that credit profile as opposed to having 10 department store cards or 10 minor credit cards. Now, if you're rebuilding your credit, there might be a requirement to get a few cards to start that process. So let's say you had a credit challenge several years ago. You had a consumer proposal or a bankruptcy, and you're rebuilding your credit, then there's one particular credit card that is designed for that process. And that credit balance usually starts at around $250, sorry. And then you may want to get another card. Once you have that credit card and your credit score starts to increase, you may want to get another card with a higher limit. The ideal credit limit for that lenders look at, particularly mortgage lenders, is around $2,500. So you want to have at least one card with a minimum credit limit of at least $2,500. Anything less than that, the $1,000 limit or the $500 limit, they refer to it as a limited credit profile or a very soft credit profile, because you haven't really displayed the ability to use credit effectively. Because, I mean, let's make the comparison. You've got a $1,000 credit card. Your minimum payment is 3% on that credit card, is $30 a month, but you're trying to apply for a $400,000 mortgage. So how do you compare using a $1,000 credit card for a year to applying for a $400,000 debt? So lenders are like a lot more cautious with people who have limited credit limits on their profile, as opposed to somebody who has access to a $15,000 limit on their credit card or a $20,000 limit on their credit card and manages that credit limit responsibly.
Okay, got more points live. Getting your pronounces saying every time you check your credit, you lose 3 to 5 points. I always tell my clients to ask the last company to pull up their credit to send them a copy. Do you agree with that?
And not necessarily 100% accurate. I mean, they can pull their credit report themselves from Equifax or TransUnion. I think the cost is $25 to get with the credit score. It has no impact on your credit report. But the second part is correct. I mean, if you've got multiple people checking your credit profile every few months, the score will drop a few points. Okay. It will go up again. I mean, 3 to 5 points is not a huge impact on your credit. I mean, it is if your credit score is very low. If your credit score is above 780 and you drop 3 points, it's not the end of the world. If you got a 680 credit score or a 650 credit score and it drops 3 or 5 points, I mean, it can have a huge impact on what you're trying to accomplish. So, I mean, there's some validity to that statement.
Okay. I don't know this term, so you may know it better, but Live has another question. How hard is it to create an interchange network?
I am not familiar with what an interchange
network. I've never heard of that term before.
So I can probably give you more. It may be another term we use, but I'm not familiar what that term is. It may be a commercial lending term, probably.
Okay, but they do. They also say, that's what, quote, a limited credit profile, quote, means. Thank you. So you're educating and dropping knowledge bombs. Thank you so much. So we talked a little about credit score range. What do you want to get into next?
The next thing is understanding how your debt impacts mortgage qualification and what the terms are that lenders use. I mean, here in Canada, there are 2 terms that we use: your gross debt service ratio and your total debt service ratio. Your gross debt service ratio is what your total housing expenses, which is your mortgage payments, your property tax and utilities, and half your condo fees are in relation to your income. Your total debt service ratio are those same numbers plus your other debt. Now, in the US, it's called debt to income ratio for my US listeners. So, and they're very similar, same concept, same calculations. Here in Canada today, the maximum gross debt service ratio a major bank will accept is 39%. That means that your housing costs, including your condo fees, can't exceed 39% of your gross income. And for your total debts, which is your anything above your housing costs, your credit card payments, car loan payments, lines of credit, student loans, etc., can't exceed 44% of your gross income. And that is for prime lenders. In the US, the number is debt to ratio income, and they're a little more conservative. So their max number is 43%, but for your housing costs, including your condo fees, it's between 28 and 33%. So, and that may be because home prices in many parts of the US are significantly lower than here in major Canadian cities. And also incomes, the minimum income in many US cities and states is lower than the minimum incomes here in parts of Canada. I'm referring to minimum wage now, right? What is important to understand here is that your mortgage qualification is done based on your gross income. That's your income before taxes and deductions. So if you're making $65,000 a year annually, the lender is qualifying you on that $65,000. However, you are making your payments on your net income, which may probably be around $54,000 a year based on your tax bracket and your dependents. And this is where budgeting comes into play, because many clients will come to us wanting a pre-qualification or a pre-approval, and the first thing they'll ask us, what is the maximum mortgage I can qualify for? But the maximum mortgage you can qualify for is not necessarily the maximum mortgage you can afford to pay, because you may have expenses that limit your ability to pay what you can qualify for based on your gross income. And that's a very challenging conversation for many people, because we've got this fixation that, I want to live in this house. Right? But if you're a young family between your 30s and 40s, and you've got 2 or 3 young children, your household expenses, even at a $65,000 annual income, is significantly more than a 25-year-old person with no children and no dependents, or a 50-something-year-old person with adult children who already left the house. So the household budgeting is much more critical in the home buying journey than just looking at ratios and credit scores. And hence the reason many people today are in a bit of a quagmire because rates have gone up. Because you financed your home purchasing at the lowest rate in probably history in this part of the world, and now the rates have gone up 3%, the payment shock is significantly affecting your lifestyle and even perhaps the ability to keep that home, right? So those things you have to be very conscious of.
All right. Let me pause. I'm going to go back because there's some questions still about credit. You don't mind if you answer them now?
Definitely not. I mean, credit is on everybody's mind. That's the end all be all for most people, most of us.
So the live lending group they had their question about interchange network, and you said need a definition. So provide the information. The interchange networks are the payment networks that credit cards use.
Okay.
So coming back to the question now that they had, how hard is it to create an interchange network?
I couldn't answer that question.
Okay, no problem. And then Serena asked, what if you have a couple of store cards and had them for a while, paid on time? Would closing them negatively affect your credit score?
Yes, it would.
Why would that be?
Because you're not closing off an item that reports to Equifax. And if you've had them and you've had a favorable credit relationship with those lenders, then yes, it will affect your credit negatively. So, I mean, what you might want to do is try to get a major bank card, preferably a Chase credit card, have that card for probably 3 to 4 years, and then just stop using the cards. You don't have to close them. Just stop using them. I mean, if there's no annual fee to the card, there's no cost to having the card. If there's an annual fee to having the card, then you want to close the one with a fee. But you want to replace that credit facility with something that works better for you. And the Chase card is probably one of the better cards in the US, or the American Express card.
So I just love the comment that Live Lending Group is saying more people should be here in here listening to this. Absolutely. Well, that's why we're doing it. That's why we're having Ray on once a month. Now, Ms. Hussein has a question. Is it true that banks are considering increasing TDS and GDS ratios from the limits shared earlier?
Well, when I first started in the industry, the ratios were 32% and 39% when I first started back in the mid-90s. Now we are 39% and 44%. When I first started, only employment income and investment income was used to qualify for credit applications. Today, banks use child support, they use alimony, they use the child tax credit. Within the last 3 years, all the major banks, if I'm not mistaken, use a child tax credit based on the age of the child. So by effectively using those other sources of income, which aren't continuous your entire life, they have effectively raised the debt service ratios. And in my opinion, there's a challenge with that, because if you have a 14-year-old child and you're collecting a child tax credit of $400 a month, and you're using that income to qualify for a mortgage as a first-time home buyer, which you would probably have for 25 to 30 years, at the age of 18, that child tax credit will stop. So if your income hasn't increased enough to offset that $400, you're going to have a cash flow shortfall in the very, very near future. So, I've got a lot of clients who have huge child tax credits, but unless that child is below the age of 10, I am not usually factoring in all that income in their mortgage qualification process, because, the child can die. This may sound morbid, but the child can die. That's one. The money will stop. And then the child gets to a certain age and the money will stop. So I don't think it's reasonable for someone to finance their lifestyle on income that is not guaranteed. No income is guaranteed. Even your job is not guaranteed. But right. Even like the child support or the alimony, if your ex-spouse passes away, then the child support stops.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So we've got to be very careful. So I don't anticipate that they will increase the numbers significantly more. However, there are alternative lenders who go as high as a 60% debt service ratio.
Wow.
Here in Canada. Now, those products are designed for people who are self-employed. And that's a whole different conversation when you're self-employed and applying for a mortgage. It's not the same as somebody who has a 9-to-5 job with a pay stub, a T4 or a W-2, and then files their taxes and has their tax deducted at sources. So if you're self-employed, the financing process is quite different. And as people who are self-employed, we can go as high as 60% total debt service ratio on our applications. Mind you, there's a high interest rate and usually a lender fee. But for many self-employed persons, it works for them.
Got it. So let's do a reset here. We're speaking with Ray McMillan of the McMillan Group. We're talking everything credit, mortgages. And I have a feeling we may not get to all the topics that Ray wanted to cover, because there are so many great questions from people live. So keep on asking the questions.
But let's answer the questions, Dr. Vibe.
Yeah, well,
that will keep the audience engaged for us, please.
Absolutely. So, we got people watching live. Like, we have stuff, Ray has stuff he wants to share, but he would rather ask the live questions. And hey, great questions coming from both sides of the border, from Canada, and we have Divine Right, Serena from the US asking questions. Please, when it comes to credit, it's universal. Doesn't matter where you're sitting. There's some basic credit principles that we should all be following. So just doing a reset here. Dr. Vibe here. Hopefully Ryan's going to get home from his walking the children to school this morning, but we move onward. So Ray, what would you like to cover next?
Let's look at what's happening in the Canadian landscape and how it affects the home buyers. I mean, we've seen rates change significantly. We've seen this huge home price reset. People are scared. And how does this affect everyone? Let's start with home owners first. If you own a home and you have an existing mortgage and your home has changed its value in the last 4 months by, let's say, 15%, you're planning to retire, sell your home, move to Costa Rica, Panama, Belize, Jamaica, wherever you want to go. You have now got to go back and replan your next move, because you will find that the equity you expected to extract from your home is no longer available because the prices have contracted. And if you're moving somewhere, to the Caribbean, the prices there might not have changed as much as they have here. If you were buying, I think there's an opportunity to be as a buyer today for two reasons. One, the prices have contracted, in some cases significantly. And if you look at the graph we got a minute ago, you will see that some prices have dropped by somewhere in the 20% range in the Kitchener-Waterloo, Cambridge area. This is not too far from the GTA. It's a 45-minute GO train bus train ride into the GTA from the Kitchener-Waterloo, Cambridge area. But what's also more important is that the bidding war frenzy that was happening in the late part of winter this year and early spring has stopped.
It's done.
It's done. It's all over. So many first-time buyers, that was their challenge. Houses for $800,000, and you had to buy it for $1 million because there were all these offers that were on the table. So it basically pushed out that first-time buyer who had limited resources and limited income to qualify for the higher purchase price and with it the higher mortgage. So in today's environment, there's a huge opportunity for you as a first-time buyer. We just did a transaction for a client who bought a townhome in Cambridge, I think for $429,000. Two-bedroom townhome condo, which is an amazing price, right? So yes, the rates have gone up, but the adjustment in many parts of the GTA, and we can look at we can look at those. You can just go to Google and see what the price adjustment has been in the last 6 months in any city or zip code across North America, and decide where you want to live based on that, right? So I mean, it's challenging for some, but in it all, there's opportunity. The other people who are going to be affected significantly are those with mortgage renewing in the next few months, because we've had a 20-year run of very low interest rates. And we get these calls from our clients. We got a call from a client, two clients, this week actually. They're asking what should they do, because you're coming from a mortgage that in January, if you had a prime rate mortgage, probably 1.25%, and you're going to a rate today that's somewhere around 4.4%. That's a 3% increase in your mortgage, in your interest rate. If you've got a small mortgage, $100,000 or less, $200,000 or less, you might be able to deal with the payment shock. If you've got a $500,000 mortgage or more, and your rate jumps 3% on the renewal, and your income hasn't changed significantly in the last 5 years, you are going to find yourself in a bit of challenge, in a bit of a problem. Now, if you've owned a home for several years, in order to counteract that payment shock, what you may have to do is refinance your mortgage and re-extend the amortization back out a few years into the future. So if you're 15 years right now, you might push it back out 20 years or 25 years or even 30 years to get to a point where it's affordable. So it's not end of the world, but this is probably the one time in the last 20 years where any homeowner or home buyer needs to sit down with a mortgage professional and really analyze their personal finances to figure out how to navigate our current landscape. Or else you may find yourself in a very, very challenging position very, very quickly.
Well, this is great. And look who has showed up. The school walker is in the house.
Yes. Good day. Always
Good
good to
morning,
see
Ryan.
you. Yes.
Good. How you doing?
Yeah, man. Fantastic. Just sitting back, enjoying the information as one of those first-time home buyers dealing with the ruckus that they call the housing market. So just trying to take notes and learn as much as I can. But always good to see you, Ray.
Good
Same here,
stuff.
Ryan.
Well, and Ray, you asked for questions. More questions are coming. So here's from Live Lending Group another question. Okay, serious question. Is it better to buy property now as a business since interest rates can be written off and furthermore discounted prices as opposed to buying privately?
Well, I think what he's asking is, should I buy my property under a corporation or in my own name? So let's clarify the question first, if that's what the question really is. And if that is the question, buying a property in your own name is easier than buying a property under a corporation. And not too many banks in Canada allow properties to be held under corporations. It's a much more stringent process.
So they're asking us a
You
corporate.
clarified, yes. Okay, so I was correct. Thank you very much. It's a much more stringent process, and usually there's a larger down payment required. Remember, as a first-time buyer, you can buy a home, and a first-time buyer means somebody who hasn't owned a home within the last 4 years in Canada, or they've changed provinces, or their marital status changed to divorce, or a spouse passed away. All those things will now trigger you to become a first-time buyer. You can buy a home with less than 20% down payment. So you can buy with 5% down, it's less than $500,000. If it's more than if it's less than $500,000, sorry, if it's more than $500,000, you put 5% on the first 500,000 and 10% on the amount over $500,000 up to $999.99. So your purchase price has to be less than $1 million and a cent. Anything more than $1 million, you've got to put 20% down payment, right? So keep that in mind. If you buy under a corporation, you've got to put down 20% or more, because the default insurers, which is CMHC, Sagan, and Canada Guarantee, don't insure corporate real estate transactions. So if you're a first-time buyer, getting that 20% in the Canadian landscape is somewhere between $200,000 to $300,000 or $400,000. So it might not necessarily work in your favor. However, if you have a business, whether your home is bought under a corporation or not, part of your home can be used for business use, and as a result, you can deduct some of your expenses. But your accountant can better advise you on that. In the U.S., mortgage interest is tax deductible on your principal residence, quite unlike here in Canada. So there's a taxable benefit in the U.S. to owning real estate, not so much here in Canada for your owner-occupied home. But I mean, if you want to buy from a corporation, you've got to have some serious planning. You got to sit down with an accountant and a experienced mortgage professional to figure out how that really works, will work for you, and if it makes sense.
Ray, you asked her questions. You're getting more questions. So here's your next question. Any truth to speculation that prime could go up to 10% in Canada?
I couldn't answer that question. There's no crystal ball on interest rates. I think it'll be highly unlikely. I mean, we have seen rates in that arena back in the 80s and 90s. 80s, sorry. By the 90s, it started to come down significantly. I follow a gentleman by the name of Benjamin Tal. I follow him for probably the last almost 30 years now. I've introduced my son Stephan to him also. He's the one economist in Canada who I actually tend to listen to his predictions. He was CIBC, or I think he still is. I'm not sure, but he's been around for quite a while. And I've always followed his predictions. He is saying somewhere, I can't remember the exact, don't quote me on this one, but I'm thinking it was somewhere between around 7%.
Wow.
But what will happen, and I'll go back to the 90s when I first got into mortgages. What will happen many times is that the lenders, they give you a discount on that variable rate mortgage. Because I recall one of the first major banks to really push the variable rate mortgage, when they first introduced a product, or when they first made the product popular, the discount was like 3.49% off the prime rate.
Right.
So the prime rate was high. I think it was I think it was like 5.25. You can go and check this. I mean, this information is all on Google. I'm talking the mid 90s. I want to say it was around 5%, but they had like a 3.5% discount. Your rate was like 1.5%. So as the rates go up, the banks are going to start now, because real estate is the biggest driver in the economy. People start buying homes, the entire economy slows down. You start buying cars, you start buying appliances, you start buying furniture, you start buying paint, you start buying everything because you don't own a home, right? Handyman is not working anymore. You're not buying lawnmowers, you're not buying lawn care stuff.
Yeah.
So as the rate goes up, we're going to start seeing lenders introducing products that will increase that discount. And that's why your credit profile is important. Because the stronger your credit profile is, easier it is for you to negotiate that discount when it's here. If your credit profile is not the best, I mean, the banks don't give their worst customers the best deal. It's just that's just the way it is.
Exactly.
Right. So you want to get a credit score in the high 700s, 780, 820, and somewhere about there, because that's your leverage as a mortgage holder and a consumer today in this landscape.
Yeah. Wow. Like, Ryan, if you have any questions, I advise you ask them now, because we got about
No, I'm good. Yo, go ahead. Yes.
All right. I just want to make sure that because I know you may have one or two questions. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the Facebook side. A question from Christopher from Facebook: is it better to have a line of credit versus a credit card due to interest rates being lower with lines of credit?
I'm definitely, and I had a conversation with someone yesterday with that exact same question, where the bank was offering a credit card or a line of credit, and I just told them, I mean, first of all, the credit card usually comes with an annual fee, and depends on the kind of credit card you have. I mean, the higher your limit on a credit card, it's usually a premier gold card, and it's probably going to cost between $99 to probably $150 a year just to have that credit card, because all these other benefits on a credit card that many of us might not necessarily use. The line of credit, it's a no-brainer, right? And the lines of credit are usually reserved for the bank's best customers. So if the bank is giving you $15,000 on line of credit, take it. Right?
Gotcha.
Credit cards are easier to get, and as you make your payments on the credit card, usually they'll increase your limit over time. But with the line of credit, it's a little more of a stringent qualification process. So yes, take the line of credit over the credit card any day.
All right. And Serena does say, happy Friday, Ryan.
Appreciate it.
Live has a question here. I do unsecured commercial lending. Earlier this year, businesses were taking loans from us, loaning it to themselves personally and using it as a down payment for commercial property.
Very high risk process.
Ooh. Okay.
That takes us back to the 2007, 2008 landscape when we had the zero down mortgages all across Canada and the US. I mean, if your business doesn't have enough money to buy a home, then your business is not making a lot of money. And I don't mean to offend anybody here, but that's just the reality of the situation. So, I mean, so if that's a lot of leverage, in my opinion. That's a whole lot of leverage. But I mean, I have to look at each business individually, but just on the top, looking at it from outside, that's a very risky operation.
All right. Another question.
Ryan? What do you think as a business coach? What's your opinion on that?
Because that's where now you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself on both sides, because you're taking money out that you're telling a lender you're going to use for business, using it for the home purchase, or I guess lending it to yourself. And then now you're using that for the down payment. it does have benefits because it helps you get into the home. But now, if the business falters, where would the personal income come from to cover that rent? And again, unless you're planning to just discard that business and you create credit or create debt, and then if it doesn't work out, you just kind of bankrupt the business. That is a very, like you said, it's risky because that is not. Oh man, it's a risky way to do business because then you're not really serious about the business. You're kind of just using it to leverage to get the home. Because now
there's a lot of gray areas there which I wouldn't even address. There's a lot of gray areas there I wouldn't address, but I mean, I can't make an opinion or judgment unless I know what exactly the situation is for each individual person. But just on the surface, I think it's a very risky process, and there's a lot of gray areas in that. Because, I mean, if you're borrowing to buy, you have to disclose that to your lender. Now, if you're born under a business profile, it might not show up in your personal profile. So the lender doesn't know that you actually borrowed your $100,000 down payment, and it's costing you $1,000 because that's showing your personal profile. So right there's an issue. So as mortgage professionals, we have a responsibility to the lender. And let me just clarify this for everybody. The mortgage professional, even though the client who's born is we take care of the client, we have more responsibility to the lender than the client. We have a fiduciary responsibility. We act as agents to the lender, not agent to the client. So it's our responsibility to disclose any issue that can increase the risk of the lender on any mortgage transaction, whether it's an appraisal issue, whether it's a home inspection issue, whether it's an issue with a client through non-disclosure. All those things we have to advise the lender. So I mean, it's.
And I guess on the flip side, if the business is generating enough income to cover the monthly payments,
there's no problem.
Then it's just
it's not a problem. Yes. I mean, there's a lot to that. There's a lot to that conversation. You just can't make a judgment. Yeah.
Right.
Nice. So Live says, "Oh man, I have to get to work. I'm loving this episode, though. Thank you guys for doing this. Morning, Mr. Frey, and I'll get to a Tim question. What does Ray feel about co-ownership, whether private or commercial?"
I don't understand why it's not done more. For me, it's baffling to me. Even within our families, even among siblings, even among close friends. Forget the house prices. I mean, house prices is just the reality of the environment we're in at any given time. I mean, you bought a house 10 years ago for $200,000. You have the same qualification challenges as you have today buying one for $800,000 because everything is going to pass an income. Right? And that's just the reality of the last 100 years. I mean, everybody's income is going to put 4% or 1% or whatever I don't know. I haven't been an employee for 30 years, so I don't know what the income increases by in North America. But I mean, so it's a no-brainer. I mean, you've got two siblings, they're in their 20s, they live at home with their parents. You buy that home together. You live in it as siblings, you hang out, you have fun, or you rent it. Even buying commercial units. I mean, there's many of us who own businesses, and we're all rented. I've rented my up to 20-something years, and the rent is not cheap, right? But I mean, yes, I could have bought a commercial unit, but it's usually not in a place that makes sense for what I do. Because the location is not, it's not conducive to I have a financial business, so I mean, I don't want to be in some plaza in some industrial area, right? It may work for some people, it doesn't work for me. Excuse me, but I have tried to buy a unit several years ago with associates of mine, and we came close, but then it didn't happen. And that unit today would probably be worth about $2 million, and the price at the time was probably around $350. Right.
And then any insight as to why it fell apart at the end? Because I've heard that similar story where people were working towards buying something and then it not working.
I think a lot of it is false expectations, not understanding the process, a lot of non-disclosure from parties involved. Like, you've got to be very, very transparent when you want to get in a $500,000 transaction with with a friend. With siblings, it might be easier. With siblings, the big challenge is spouses. If you got one sibling is married, the other two are single. One has kids, the other doesn't have kids. I mean, having kids in the house. I mean, Ryan, you got young kids. It's a nightmare.
Yes.
They break every damn thing up.
Yeah, our neighbors found out quickly.
They run to the house, they run to a wall, the hole in the drywall, they pull out the fridge handle door. Like,
you never know.
Something in the house once you got young kids. I have two young sons who are 18 months apart.
Yes.
Something is always broken. Right? Imagine me and my brother who has no children buying a home together.
Right.
And my kids are kicking in the furniture every other day. And he got his $2,000 leather sofa.
Yeah.
So we have to be able to work around those little things for the end result. So there's a short-term sacrifice we have to make to get to the end goal. And I think that for many of us is the big challenge. Right.
Good.
Now at my age, having experienced the highs and the lows, my perspective is different. But would I have had the same perspective when I was 28 years old? Because my ego was ruling me at that point in my life. Today is a little different. Right? I understand the logic of creating that legacy. And the fastest way is through collaboration. So, I mean, it's a little different to me.
All right. Serena's had a question for a while. Sorry, we haven't got to it sooner. Says, my first house, I had an ARM. I don't know what an ARM is. How do you feel about those, Ray?
An ARM is an adjustable rate mortgage.
Okay.
Same as a variable rate mortgage here in Canada. Those work. I mean, it's another mortgage product. Like any mortgage product, you have to figure out how it works based on your financial situation, because the payments can change at any given time. With the US ARM mortgage, it's what's called a balloon payment sometimes. So you have to prepare yourself for that balloon payment. And then there's a conversion date. Sometimes you have to convert at a certain time. And when you convert, the rate may be significantly higher. Now, let me clarify. In the US, mortgage terms are different here in Canada. In Canada, we go from 6 months to 10 years in the mortgage term, 25 years and 30 years in the amortization, 40 with some lenders. In the US, you go from a 15-year term to a 30-year term. And that's it. So you take out a mortgage, you take out a 30-year mortgage, and that's the mortgage you have for the rest of your life. If you choose to renegotiate that mortgage, there's no penalty to break that mortgage. There are other costs involved. There's points and lender fees and all that kind of cost, but there's no penalty to break your mortgage. So, if you are a savvy borrower and you understand the financial landscape, you can actually navigate it easier than here in Canada. Because, for example, let's look at the current interest rates in Canada. Rates today on a 5-year term are probably 5.25%. You've got a $400,000 mortgage. You renew it today. In 2 years, fast forward 2 years, 2024, rates dropped to 2.5%. You want to now break your mortgage, take advantage of the lower interest rate. The lender will charge you at that time an interest rate penalty or loss of interest remainder of the term. You can end up with like a $20,000 penalty to break your mortgage. I mean, we've seen them. $25,000 mortgage penalty to break a mortgage. It's got rates of no drop. In the US, that doesn't happen. We did a mortgage renewal, I think early last year. There's no penalty, right? The rates dropped before everything happened, and we just negotiated the mortgage and dropped the interest rate and moved on. So you have, when you get into different mortgage products, working with a mortgage advisor is very important. So it can explain to you the pros and the cons in relation to your particular circumstances. Not a general, it's a great mortgage product, let's use it. But how does it going to impact your financial journey and where you're trying to go in the next 5 to 10 years?
Makes sense.
I hope I answered your question.
Next question, another one from Christopher from Facebook. Quick question: is the first-time buyer incentive applicable to all provinces or only offered to people living in Ontario?
It's all provinces. We're not too sure about Quebec because they have a whole different set of guidelines in Quebec. But I know it's anywhere across the country.
Okay,
it's a federal program. So it's not a provincial program.
Right. Let's see. I think we are caught up with, believe it or not, caught up with questions. Yeah, I think we are. Ryan,
Sweet.
you have room to ask a question.
Well, I mean, I feel we dug quite deep into mortgage, and I missed a bit of you were talking about getting outside of the GTA to live. And I did want to continue our conversation about where you felt is the best place for the Black community to live anywhere in the world. So yes, get out of the GTA, but where do you feel we should be living anywhere if we could pick?
I mean, Ed asked me that question earlier, and for me, my approach is very simple. I grew up in the Caribbean, so I came to Canada when I was 25 years old. So my life experiences are in a country where the population looked entirely like me. So the good, the bad, and the ugly were all Black. Right. So for me, I will always prefer to live in an environment where the majority of the people look like myself, but not only look like myself, but share similar cultural and other beliefs. I mean, I can go to a country, for example, where they're all Black, but maybe a Muslim population. I am not Muslim.
Right.
So it's not only about the color of the person's skin, it's about having a common belief system. I mean, I lived in Meadowvale all my life in Canada, right? And Meadowvale is a very nice, it's a very small community. I wouldn't live anywhere else in the GTA other than Meadowvale. Right. Because, it's a mix of different ethnic groups. There's white folks, a couple of Chinese, a few Indian people, a few Caribbean folks. And, I go to the same stores all the time, same drugstore. I've gone to the same dry cleaners for the last 25 years. My son now goes to the same dry cleaners.
Yeah.
I started going to dry cleaner when he was 4 years old. So it's bigger than just the color of your skin.
Right.
I think there's a lot more to the conversation than just ethnicity.
Yeah, and I wanted to get your feedback on.
Having said that,
yeah.
In North America, we haven't managed to create. Let's take Canada, for example. We haven't managed to create sustainable Black environments.
Neighborhoods, not communities.
Neighborhoods, environments. We've done it in the U.S., where you've got, the Black. I've spent a lot of time in Jacksonville, for example. For those who don't know, Jacksonville has a 1.2 million people population. It's about 40% Black.
Wow.
So that means that I got a Black mechanic, I got a Black tire shop, I got a Black supermarket, I got a Black restaurant, I got a Black dry cleaners, I got a Black tailor, I got a Black store. So a lot of what I can do can be done within that environment. And you've got, these Black funeral homes, like it's normal. And, coming from the Caribbean, I lived in between Guyana and St. Lucia most of my life. Every business was Black owned. So for me, being in North America or being in Canada, not North America, in Canada, and seeing all these first this, first that.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling. It's like, what nonsense is this? First this. Like, come on, guys. Like, I mean, I think we are too caught up today in those firsts and missing the actual grand scheme of things. Like, we applaud the person, congratulations, but this whole first this and first that, it's nonsense. It's bigger than that.
All right.
Definitely.
All right, got some more comments here. Trina says, I believe in co-ownership, but make sure you do it with the right person or people. I co-owned a property in the past, but it was done with the wrong person. I didn't ask those important questions. She also says, wow, 20K penalty.
Go ahead. So the ownership stuff, the one thing you want to figure out is the timelines. Is this, like, how long are we going to do this for? Is it 5 years? 10 years? Is it 20 years? Because it has to be it's not a 2-month process. All people have to understand, all parties have to understand that a mortgage is a contract. So we enter into this contract to borrow all this money. So there's all these contracts involved. There's the mortgage contract, there's the home buyer's contract, and then if you're going to rent the property out, then there's all those rental contracts. So you can't get involved in this process and then say, I want to change my mind tomorrow. It's not going to work. And if you change your mind tomorrow, then you're going to forfeit your equity. It's that simple. I'm not going to refinance a mortgage because you change your mind in 5 days. You give you back 40 grand. That's going to cost me $50,000 in fees and penalties. I'm not doing it. That's not the plan. So you have to forfeit your 40 grand and just keep on moving. Sign it over to me. End the conversation.
Right.
And you have to be tough with each other when it comes to money. It's not an emotional thing. Money is a business. The business of money.
Mm-hmm.
So remove the emotion. Even if it's your brother or a friend you've had, like, this is how you're going to do it. Do you want to be involved? Yes or no? And if you decide you want to change your mind in 2 years, then you're going to have to sign over your ownership to me and wait for the next 10 years and get back your value today, 10 years from now. So I'm going to take all the gain then, because I'm riding the shoe by myself now. Right. You can't remove yourself and then still want the gain. It's not going to work that way.
Ray, do you have a few more moments? We're into bonus time.
I'm not working today. I'm working Fridays, man. Back in the past, I used to stop working 1 o'clock on Fridays, right? You knew me. Today, that's where stuff comes in, eh?
Yeah.
I tell my clients, I just can't spend around the whole day, and Stephan runs the show and gives me a stipend.
Right. Yes.
We're into some bonus time now. Some more questions and comments, and this is also from Christopher from Facebook. He goes, let's compare mangoes with mangoes. They say only utilize 30% of your credit limit when using credit cards, meanwhile paying off your balance before 90 days. Is this truth and nothing but the truth?
Well, okay, your credit card. Okay, let me break it down. So I worked for a major bank in the 90s. I was what was called a high net worth financial advisor. So I worked with the best of Canadian clients. And they were all races. They weren't just a particular race. So contrary to popular belief, there are a lot of black folks in Canada with money. Most people who have high net worth, high credit scores, significant assets, don't carry credit card debt. The credit card is used by them. They use the bank's money to do what they want to do. So a lot of these credit cards have points and awards and free flights and all sorts of stuff. So they use their, let's say you have a credit card of $50,000 limit. They use their credit card to pay every single thing. I remember back in the 90s, you couldn't pay your utility bills to your credit card because you couldn't pay a debt with another debt. And these clients went insane, right? Because you're talking aeroplan miles. If I own 5 properties and I'm paying property taxes and utilities and stuff like that, I'm spending thousands of dollars every month on my credit card that I'm going to pay off within 24 days.
Yes.
Right. So eventually the bank starts allowing you to pay your debt with debt. So most people pay off their credit cards within the 24-day cycle. They take advantage of all the benefits, whether it's the aeroplan miles or whatever points you get, and they use those for their travel. But if you can't pay off your balance within that 24-day cycle, you want to pay the required minimum payment within the due date time. I tell my clients all the time to put their minimum payment on an auto payment plan, so you don't miss it. Right. So whatever the minimum payment is due on your credit card, it comes up to your company. A lot of times, like, okay, so I've got my clients who make the most money, have the higher incomes, usually have the lower credit scores. Reason why they're always the reason why, because they're always working. So nurses, and I'm not offending anybody here, so this is not a personal attack against nurses, so that's to make a disclosure. Nurses and truck drivers, long haul truck drivers, because if you do a California Florida run, you're gone for 7-12 days at a time, right? Many nurses work extended shifts, usually a 12-hour shift, and that's a very fatiguing, draining job. So they forget this stuff, or for a truck driver, you're not in the city when your bill is due. So they always have these late payments on their credit card. They've got great incomes, usually higher than high six figures. I mean, 6 figures or higher, but they've got credit issues. So I always advise them, put your credit card or credit cards on a minimum payment schedule. So every month that payment comes out. So you never miss a credit payment. And then you can pay whatever you want to pay over and above that once you get around to it.
Yeah, it keeps you from getting the dings.
Yeah. And those things affect your scores very, very quickly. I mean, if you miss, if you miss,
that's good stuff.
Yeah.
So some other comments here. Ms. Hussein saying, I agree with Ray regarding being extremely high risk. It's a way, but a super complicated way. Serena says, I have to go, gentlemen. This has been wonderful. Thank you for your pearls of wisdom, Ray. Have a blessed weekend, everyone. Also, Hussein says disclosure. Ms. Hussein says disclosure is extremely important. And then we have another question from Christopher from Facebook. Curious, can credit card interest rates be negotiated if minimum payments are paid consistently?
Yes. I mean, if you've had a credit card, you had a credit card for a long time, you consider what is considered a valued customer. I mean, we're all valued customers, regardless of our circumstances, right?
Right.
But I mean, you can negotiate your credit card payment, and that's why I think it's important for us in this world of virtual banking and online banking. I keep telling people you want to maintain a branch banking relationship.
Yeah,
I've got one.
Your local branch. Like I started working for one of the major banks when they first started online banking. I was one of those people who pushed the online banking agenda. I am a branch customer. I go into my bank, I stand in line, I say hi to everybody. Manager knows me by first name or by last name. That process is very, very important. Virtual banking is convenient. It's amazing.
It is.
But if you need, because remember, every branch has what is called an override authority. So even if your circumstances aren't the best, that branch has the ability to approve stuff up to a certain limit that you can't get done in a virtual banking world. And so
that is a knowledge bomb right there, Ray.
Walk into the bank and let your bank manager know who you are.
Yeah.
I go into the bank and stand in line, deposit all my checks. I go inside and pick up $20 I go to the counter and get everything I do. I go into the branch and do it. I train my son, my kids do the exact same thing. Go into the bank and get your banking done.
Yeah, that is a knowledge.
Let's look at a car loan, for example. You apply for a car loan online. It's automated. Credit price be 720, income X number of dollars per year, car has to be a certain year, X number of miles. So if it doesn't fit any of those criteria, you get an auto decline. You go into the bank, you've been banking since you were 10 years old, the same file, you get approved.
Right.
Because they have the override authority to get it done for you.
It's interesting you say that, Ray. I have had the same branch since high school. Like the locations have changed, but the same bank account number, same transit number. And I agree with you. I don't mind going into a bank because when I go in there, so many people say, "Hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing?" Developing that relationship is so key.
Very critical.
Really, I think that is a big point right now. I agree with you. Virtual banking, yeah, for some things, I think a long time ago, someone said if you're dealing with facts, you can deal online or over a phone. When you're dealing with emotions, you got to do it face to face.
Interesting. I like that.
Definitely face to face. Well, even though we don't want to keep our viewers on for too long, we've gone into bonus time, but I think we're going to halt it there. And as I said about 45 minutes ago, we didn't even get anything near to what Ray wanted to chat about today, but that's a good thing because he wanted to get the questions. And audience, whether you're watching this live or on the replay, excellent questions. And hey, if you didn't
and Ray will be back.
Yes, he's back every month. And catch the replays. Catch the replays. Ray, I'd like to say thank you for everything you and Stephan have done, are doing, and will be doing. Any final words you'd like to share with our audience today?
Don't get caught up in all this news every single 5 minutes, all these articles, all these pundits who are, like you have to sit down, look at your circumstances. Don't be afraid to enter the market. There's a lot of products out there. There's a lot of opportunity. And there's many people working remotely. There are markets outside of your local that may work for you once you understand the market. But But like sit down with somebody who got some experience. Make sure that your team is on the same page. Your mortgage professional, your realtor, even your real estate lawyer. And don't be afraid to get into the market. There's stuff out there. You might not get the home you want today, but find something that works for you. Because the value will increase. And this is a good time to buy real estate. It's on sale right now. It's discounted.
Okay.
It will go back up. This is temporary. So don't, and even if you buy today and it drops another 10% over the year, big deal. You're already in the market. It's a long-term play. It's not a short-term play.
I think there's a key thing. If you're going, it's the long-term play. It's the long-term play. Like if you're only wanting to do it, if you're only thinking 2 or 3 years ahead, forget it.
You get it. Yeah. I mean, clients will come to us and they say, "Oh, my house is lost value." Your house hasn't lost any value. I mean, are you planning to sell your house? And if you are planning to sell your house and buy something else, you buy them both at the same discounted price, without all the bidding, the multiple bidding confusion. So you're in a very relaxed environment. So figure out how to navigate it and talk to professionals and let them work with it for you.
Well, speaking about professionals, there's a professional on our screen right now, and his contact information is right there for everybody. And I flashed it throughout the conversation. But like I said, I know, like, again, Serena is a perfect example. She's not even in Canada. She has benefited from the knowledge that Ray has shared with her. And it sounds like they're going to have a working business relation together, which is what we want. We want, as Ray said earlier on, the collaboration piece. The collaboration piece is so important. So let me just see, another comment just came in, so I don't know if there's another question here. Here we go. Awesome knowledge bombs. Thank you.
Yes.
So Ray, thank you so much. Have a good rest of the day. I know we will be in touch, and enjoy the rest of your Friday, your day off.
Awesome. Yes.
Take care, Ray. Be well.
Very good, guys. Thanks a lot.
Very much. Bye-bye. Yeah, that was absolutely fantastic. Like,
sweet.
Yeah, Ray gave us some things that he wanted to share about yesterday. As he didn't even get close to anything, but that's a good thing. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. There was a lot
engaged audience. I love it.
Yeah, really, really, really great audience. And again, this is something I would suggest people, if you didn't catch it live, watch the replay. If you caught it live, watch the replay, because there's a lot of valuable things going on. So what's up with you, Ryan, for the weekend?
The weekend's quiet. No traveling. Just gonna be home. Yeah. How about yourself?
Well, I got to do a little bit of moving tomorrow morning. I'm going to a celebration of a friend who's been with the same company for 35 years. She's been with the Bank of Montreal for 35 years. Okay. So they're having an employee sort of celebration and friend celebrations. And so then Sunday afternoon on Black Canada Talking, have a company, I can't remember their name off the top of my head, it's an organization that does supervised visits.
Okay. That's for like child custody?
Yes, they are. They do supervised visits, not only in the Southern Ontario area, but also in Saskatoon.
Okay. Whoa.
So they are going to be coming on, and then tentatively Sunday night, we're going to be doing State of Things with Aisha, Jill, and Laura. Nice. And then Monday, we have scheduled Sophia Jackson, who is running for school trustee is in the GTA area, Greater Toronto area.
GTA and then Brampton. She's running in Brampton. Shout out
GTHA. Well, you can say Brampton. You're not in Brampton anymore.
Listen, so GTHA doesn't cover Brampton. Well, does it?
Says who?
It's very loosely.
Says who?
Very loosely. But
says
yes,
who?
Sophia, shout out to all the candidates that are running in Brampton. Good luck to y'all. But glad that we have Sophia coming on.
So Sophia's coming on, and I'm just seeing if I can pull up the name of Renew Supervision Services. So that's the organization I'm having on Sunday afternoon on Black Canada Talking at 5 p.m. because this is unfortunately an area that we have to address supervised visits within the Black family, and they're going to be on, and they have a lot of people who are in their organization. They're doing it, so this is really good. So these are the type of things we're bringing to the platform. And then I will tell people from now, we will be on a little bit of a break. There'll be no shows on the 23rd and the 26th. I'm taking a little of a break. So on the 23rd and 26th, there'll be replays that are on. I may do something live with Ryan on one of those days, but I don't count on it. And then our next scheduled live conversation on the Morning Vibe will be on the 30th. And I'm tentatively have Dr. Tachi coming on talking about media, tech, and pop culture.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
I haven't reached out to 100% yet, but that's what we're looking at. And then we have, like, again, next month we'll have 4 regular guests on: Wayne Harris, Janice Bartley, and Marie Fritron from Foodpreneur Lab. We'll have Ray, and also have Leslie McEwen talking about mental health. So 4 spots are already taken for October, November, and December. And then if you or you know someone that needs to come on, contact us. And also too, if you'd like to promote your business or service on your show, contact me. Contact me. We're beginning to get more people who are saying they're interested. We'll see who jumps in first, but we got more people that are saying that they are going to be doing ads or whatever on the Morning Vibe, and we appreciate that. So Ryan's having he's probably going to have a quieter weekend than myself, which is rare.
Right. Yes.
How was the trip to the Northwest Territories yesterday?
Northwest? Where did I go?
Brampton.
Downtown Toronto. Well, I went Brampton and downtown. Oh, so quick shout out to the Real World Institute with Tanya Williams. Got to meet her in person, meeting a celebrity, and me stumbling over my foot, stepped on her foot. So I'm sure she'll always remember me now.
You stepped on her foot.
I got starstruck. I didn't know how to.
You're kidding.
To say hi.
You're kidding. You had never met her before.
So when you get to talk to her, yeah, ask her why Ryan stepped on her foot. Anyway, I apologize to you, Tanya. Love you, but they were having their TIFF mixer, so participants of their cohort got to meet with industry professionals. So I was just like a fly on the wall, listening to directors and producers and just writers and filmmakers talk about their projects. It was a wonderful vibe. So I got to go down for a minute and then head back to pick up the kiddos.
And maybe we'll get to talk about it sooner. What is the impact of TIFF on the Black Canadian environment? And I was having a conversation with someone yesterday, and they said, and I'm not going to tell who it is, he said most of the people that are taking pictures of themselves at TIFF are broke. I didn't know. I just went.
Hey, hearing the stories, it's very difficult to fund those types of film projects.
Oh yeah.
So it's true. Like, a lot of them are raising money, and you'll notice some people have a smoother time, may not be as melanated. Other people have a more rough time, maybe more melanated. I'll just leave that there. But representation of Black people at TIFF has been increasing. Is that making it easier for filmmakers? I'd love to see if that's true.
That's why I'm glad you apologized to Tanya, so you can ask her to come on and ask those type of questions. That's
yes.
You stepped on her foot.
Jeez.
You're hilarious. That's classic. I can't wait to have her on and go, hi, your feet.
Right.
What size is Ryan?
Thank goodness. Hey, thank goodness she wasn't wearing open-toe shoes. So that would have been a total disaster.
So what's worse, open-toe shoes or pumps to get your footstep on? You gotta ask that question.
Yeah. So
but I think that's a question of the day. If you're a lady,
one quick thing, I do want to thank her if she's watching this, and I'll probably send her the clip. That she has been super supportive with everything the Black ecosystem is doing.
Yes.
She's in LA most of the time and still shows up and
very engaged.
Always giving her support. So I really
very engaged.
Thank you.
So
Yeah.
so folks, we look, if I don't see you on Sunday on Black Canada Talking or Stay Things with Aisha and Jules, we'll see you Monday morning with on the Morning Vibe with Sophia L. Jackson. As always, live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get smaller to get stronger. Block assumptions and aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. Remember to give yourselves grace. And finally, don't just manage your time, manage your energy. And you can be watching this at all different times. So we'll just take it live. Have a great weekend.
Yes.
Bye.